Hi guys, welcome back to Grimm's Shade, where every shadow tells a story. Tonight we're visiting one of the most sacred places in our world, a children's hospital. Places where healing happens, where miracles occur, and where sometimes the line between life and death becomes very thin. This story comes from a security guard who thought his job was simple: protect the vulnerable, keep watch through the long night hours, and make sure everyone stays safe. But what do you do when the danger isn't from the outside world, but from something far more inevitable? Our storyteller discovered that some visitors don't use the front door. Some appointments aren't made with doctors, and some battles can't be won with medicine alone. So settle in, turn down the lights, and ask yourself, when death comes calling for the innocent, how far would you go to buy them just a little more time?
I work security at a children's hospital. The kids keep telling me about the man who visits them at 3 a.m. I've been working security at St. Catherine's Children's Hospital for 3 years now. Night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It's quiet work, mostly just making rounds, checking doors, and occasionally dealing with worried parents who can't sleep. The pay isn't great, but the work is steady, and honestly, I like the peace of it. During the day, hospitals are chaos. Doctors rushing around, machines beeping, families crying or celebrating. But at night, there's this almost sacred stillness, just the soft hum of ventilators and the gentle squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. The kids are usually asleep by the time I start my shift, which makes the rare occasions when I encounter them even more memorable. Most of the time, if a child is awake at night, it's because they're scared, in pain, or just can't sleep in an unfamiliar place. Part of my unofficial duties became sitting with them sometimes, just until they drift off. The nurses are overworked, and sometimes a kid just needs someone to tell them everything's going to be okay. About 6 months ago, I started noticing a pattern. Kids would mention a visitor, always the same description: a tall, thin man in a dark suit who came to see them around 3 a.m. The first time I heard it was from Emma, a 7-year-old with leukemia. "The nice man came to see me again last night," she told her mother during visiting hours. I was doing my afternoon paperwork nearby and overheard. "What nice man, sweetheart?" her mother asked. "The one in the black suit. He sits with me when I can't sleep. He tells me stories about faraway places." Her mother looked concerned and called over a nurse, who assured her that no unauthorized visitors were allowed in the pediatric ward, especially not at night. They assumed Emma was having fever dreams from her medication. But then Marcus, a 10-year-old recovering from surgery, told his parents the exact same thing. And then Lily, who was in for breathing problems. Always the same story: a tall man in a black suit, visiting around 3 a.m., sitting with them, sometimes telling stories, sometimes just watching them sleep. The nursing staff started getting worried. They checked the security logs, reviewed camera footage, questioned everyone. Nothing. No evidence of any unauthorized person in the building. The kids were just having shared delusions, they decided. Maybe they overheard each other talking and their young minds filled in the blanks. I wasn't convinced. During my rounds, I started paying extra attention to the pediatric ward around 3 a.m. I'd walk the halls more slowly, listen more carefully, check every room twice. For weeks, I found nothing unusual, just sleeping children and the soft beep of monitoring equipment. Then I met David. David was 8 years old, in for a serious heart condition. Unlike the other kids, he seemed genuinely frightened when he talked about his visitor. When I found him crying one night around 2:30 a.m., I sat with him. "Bad dream?" I asked. He shook his head. "He's coming soon. He always comes when the big hand points up." David was looking at the wall clock. It was 2:35 a.m. "Who's coming, buddy?" "The man in the black suit. He says he's here to help, but he wants to take me somewhere." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What does he look like, David?" "He's really tall, taller than you, and thin like a stick. His face is hard to see, like it's blurry, but his eyes are very bright, and he smells like flowers at a funeral." That last detail hit me like a punch to the gut. David had never been to a funeral, How would he know what flowers at a funeral smelled like? David, I'm going to stay here with you tonight, okay? Right outside your door. If anyone comes in, I'll see them. The relief on his face was heartbreaking. I positioned myself in the hallway with a clear view of his room. I checked my watch. 2:50 a.m. I settled in to wait. At exactly 3 a.m., the temperature in the hallway dropped noticeably. I could see my breath in small puffs. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. And then I saw him.
He came from the direction of the stairwell, walking with slow, measured steps. Tall, at least 6.5 feet, and impossibly thin, wearing a black suit that seemed to absorb the fluorescent light. His face was indeed blurry, like looking at someone through frosted glass. But his eyes were points of brilliant white light. I stood up, my hand instinctively moving to my radio. "Sir, visiting hours are over. You need to—" He turned to look at me, and the words died in my throat. When those bright eyes fixed on mine, I felt a profound wrongness wash over me. This wasn't a person. This was something wearing the shape of a person, like an ill-fitting costume. "I'm here for the boy," he said. His voice was soft, barely above a whisper, but it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "He's ready." "Ready for what?" I managed to ask, though every instinct was screaming at me to run, to go where he needs to go. I stepped between him and David's door. "He's not going anywhere. This is a hospital. He's here to get better." The thing that looked like a man tilted its head, studying me. "You don't understand. I help them transition. I make it easier." That's when it clicked. David wasn't just sick. He was dying. The heart condition was more serious than anyone had told him. And this entity, this thing, was some kind of psychopump, a guide for dying children. "He's just a kid," I said, my voice stronger now. "He deserves a chance to fight." "Some battles cannot be won," the entity replied. "I ease the fear. I make the journey peaceful." Behind me, I heard David's frightened voice. "Is he here? I can smell the flowers." The entity's bright eyes shifted to look past me toward David's room. He can sense me now. The veil grows thin for him. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was protective instinct, maybe it was just stubborn human defiance, but I stood my ground. "Not tonight. Find someone else." Those brilliant eyes fixed on me again, and for a moment, I thought I was going to die right there in that hallway. The cold was so intense, it felt like ice crystals were forming in my lungs. The fluorescent lights buzzed and dimmed. Then, slowly, the entity nodded. "Very well, but I will return. I always return." He turned and walked back towards the stairwell, his footsteps making no sound on the linoleum floor. The temperature returned to normal. The lights steadied. I spent the rest of the night sitting outside David's room, and he slept peacefully until morning. David's parents arrived early the next day for what was supposed to be a meeting with the doctors about end-of-life care. His condition had deteriorated faster than expected. He had perhaps days left. But something miraculous happened. David's latest test results showed improvement. Not a full recovery, that was still impossible, but his heart was responding better to treatment than anyone had anticipated. The doctors were baffled, but cautiously optimistic. David lived for another 3 months. 3 months he spent with his family, getting to go home, going to his little sister's birthday party, seeing his dog again. When he finally passed, it was at home, surrounded by people who loved him. I never saw the entity again, though sometimes, around 3 a.m., I still feel that sudden drop in temperature. I hear other children mention their visitor less frequently now. Maybe I changed something that night. Maybe I just delayed the inevitable for one little boy who needed more time to say goodbye. I still work the night shift at St. Catherine's. I still do my rounds, check the doors, and sit with scared kids when they need it. But now, I know that some things that go bump in the night aren't there to harm. They're there to help with the hardest journey of all. I just believe that sometimes, even death can be convinced to wait a little longer.
That guard still walks those hospital corridors every night, still checks on frightened children, still stands watch in the quiet hours when the world feels most fragile. Some of you might be wondering, was he right to interfere? Was he protecting David, or was he denying him a peaceful transition? The truth is, we'll never know. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is that when faced with the impossible, when confronted with forces beyond our understanding,
the most human thing we can do is simply refuse to give up, to stand in the hallway and say, "Not tonight." That was Scary Reddit Stories number 4 here on Grimm's Shade. If this story made you think about the thin line between compassion and defiance, then you're ready for what's waiting in our next episode. Subscribe to Grimm's Shade for more tales that blur the line between protection and interference, between acceptance and hope. Ring the bell, because sometimes the most important stories are about the choices we make when everything seems hopeless. Until next time, remember that even in our darkest hours, someone is keeping watch.